人間。
Have you ever felt like what you're doing isn't enough? That you could be doing so much more with your life, working so much harder? The self-doubt and guilt that comes with perceived failure can eat away at a person, driving them into a dark place no one wants to be in. It's really a dangerous, destructive mindset. The 2006 anime series Welcome to the N.H.K. confronts this issue head-on, telling a remarkable story about a hikikomori's struggle to improve himself. It's a show I had heard so much about, but kept putting off for one stupid reason or another, until I recently decided to finally sit down and watch it. My only question? Why the hell didn't I do so sooner? Yes, today, Under the Scope, I take a look at Welcome to the N.H.K., a thoroughly relatable psychological dramedy about the endeavors of a self-proclaimed hikikomori. For those of you who don't know, hikikomori is a term the Japanese use to refer to reclusive young people who completely shut themselves off from the outside world. It's usually lumped in the same group as NEETs, hermits, and yes, otakus, though hikikomoris probably have the most negative connotation associated with them. It's a serious problem in Japanese society at the moment, but not one that's easily fixed or should be looked down upon. After all, how can a person with severe social anxiety burst out of their shell when there's a mob waiting to ridicule them just outside the door? But why does this happen to people? Is it a trigger in the brain? Maybe some complicated psychology mumbo-jumbo? No, the root cause of all this trouble is the Nihon Hikikomori Kyokai, or N.H.K., an evil, secret organization hell-bent on spreading hikikomori culture everywhere. Welcome to the N.H.K. follows Tatsuhiro Sato as he tries to escape the wicked clutches of the N.H.K. and his life of self-induced isolation, as it's a major struggle for him to even leave his apartment. Of course, the N.H.K. is really just a coping mechanism he's devised in his head in order to try to deal with the harsh reality of his current state. Change, however, comes in the form of a mysterious young girl named Misaki, who promises to break Sato free of his hikikomori life. Welcome to the N.H.K. accomplishes something few shows manage in the astounding depth to both its story and characters. It's one of those series that's a thrill to watch at times and painful at others. Its reputation for being depressing as fuck is certainly well-founded. It focuses on several social conditions ranging anywhere from the obvious hikikomoris to otakus to gamers, and the stigma in society against such people. The trouble, of course, is that when society looks down upon them and treats them like scum, they only grow more isolated, more entrenched in their obsession. The series highlights the importance of genuine human interaction in a healthy lifestyle. That's not to condemn introversion or anything, rather illustrate how cutting oneself off from the world is not a right state of mind to be in. It's a slippery slope that can lead to all kinds of psychological disorders, like anxiety and depression. The show reaches its dramatic climax, or climaxes, when it moves into the realm of suicide. At one point, we have a handful of characters who have all come to the conclusion that suicide is their best course of action. For some, it's because they feel they have no other option. For others, it's because they're just tired and don't really want to keep struggling through life's pain with so little return. Regardless of their reasons, however, the show firmly advocates that suicide is not the answer, if only because of the effect it would have on those around you, really highlighting the profound impact people have on one another, oftentimes without ever even realizing it. No anime scene has ever caused as much anxiety in me as both N.H.K.'s midpoint and final climaxes. The show also demonstrates how your thoughts can often be your own worst enemy. Whenever Sato is with the people he feels close to, whether it be Yamazaki, Kashiwa, or Misaki, he has a level of comfort, even in public. When that support group is cut off, however, and he's left to the inner machinations of his own mind, his condition deteriorates. At some point, he'll have to face the demons in his head, and only when he overcomes those, or rather accepts them, will he be able to get better. Unlike a lot of psychological shows out there, this isn't only one for people who want to have to really think to understand the story. No, it's actually incredibly accessible, and the messages are all right there for you to grasp, not buried under mountains of symbolism and metaphor, but not bashed over your head with a frying pan either. Its blend of psychological drama and dark comedy is both brilliant and seamless. There's never that choppy transition from funny to serious, and the intense moments are never awkwardly interrupted by the writers trying to be funny. It's hilarious when hilarity is appropriate, and gut-wrenching when that's appropriate. Even the comedy itself is a nice blend of light and dark, switching it up to fit the mood of the scene. Now, the storytelling isn't perfect. While the transition between comedy and drama is great, the transition between arcs is much less so. It seemed they had a lot of different topics they wanted to cover, and so had to sacrifice a bit of believability to quickly move from one to the next. I mean, really. What are the chances that the shut-in gamer Sato runs into in one arc happens to be the younger brother of the former classmate of Sato's who drags him into the multi-level marketing scheme in the next arc? Likelihood aside, N.H.K.'s story is extremely impactful on many levels. It pulls off psychological drama without getting needlessly complicated and leaves a whole pile of valuable messages to take with you. The plot doesn't drive the series, though. No, this is a show whose story follows the characters. When it comes down to it, Welcome to the N.H.K. is about its characters, and more specifically, Sato. His character arc defines the show and is ultimately what pushes it to such great heights. Sato clearly demonstrates the concept in psychology of dissonance reduction. That is, whenever he does something out of character, like voluntarily going out in public, he reminds himself he is in fact a hikikomori and brushes it off, reverting back to where he was. His firm acceptance of this reality as a part of him makes any attempt to try to drag him out even more difficult. It's the idea that people seek consistency between their expectations and reality, and will therefore bring their thoughts and actions in line with one another. His and Misaki's attempts to break him out of the lifestyle then center on whether they can break him out of this attitude. The thought goes that if he stops acting like a hikikomori and experiences some genuine human interaction, maybe he'll stop believing he's one. Of course, that's far easier said than done. NHK demonstrates how paralyzing this condition can be. It doesn't take much to drive Sato over the edge and make him frozen with fear in public. The show powerfully illustrates the seriousness of what's really a social disorder. This isn't a phase or something someone can just get over. I feel like people try to trivialize these issues sometimes, telling you to just get better when it's not that simple. You can't just get better. The social stigma towards hikikomoris only feeds into the issue. It's not like Sato wants to remain a hikikomori forever. He constantly laments his lifestyle, dubbing himself a failure, which of course only makes matters worse. That is really what's at the heart of the series. This toxic idea of blaming oneself for their problems and suffering. All of the major characters demonstrate how destructive this can be to a person's psyche. It's a dangerous spiral that only leads to more suffering and potentially severe depression. That's all the NHK really is, the need to externalize this guilt. Everyone needs something to push this blame onto. Misaki blames God, Kashiwa blames conspiracies, Yamazaki blames, well, girls I guess, and Sato blames the NHK. Pushing the guilt they feel for their own misery onto something else allows them to move forward. It's not a perfect solution, but it's a necessary one for them to achieve the peace of mind they need to either continue going through the motions, in the case of Kashiwa and Yamazaki, or reconstruct their life, in the case of Misaki and Sato. Welcome to the NHK's cast is a remarkable example of character development. It brilliantly executes its themes and serves as a shining example of just how powerful a character story can be. The only area Welcome to the NHK really fails in is the animation. First things first, I'm not talking about the character designs. Yoshitoshi Abe lends his usual touch, and I certainly have no complaints. If you're a fan of his style, neither will you. The problem with the animation comes in with, well, everything else. For starters, the backgrounds are quite bland, and the whole thing looks incredibly dated despite not even being a decade old. I can name a whole swath of shows that look a hell of a lot better than this, that are a hell of a lot older than this. The biggest issue is the inconsistency of the shots. It shifts from super detailed to gross dissolving blobs at the snap of a finger, and the transition is pretty jarring. This sort of sloppy art has worked for some shows before, like Ping Pong the Animation and Serial Experiments Lane, adding to their worlds and lending a unique style. However, for NHK, it doesn't do anything for the show's atmosphere. Instead, it's just inconsistent. On the polar opposite end of the spectrum, we have the soundtrack. What can I say besides bravo? I must admit, I do gravitate towards the acoustic style, but it genuinely fits the show's tone and always comes in at the right time. I guess you could argue that it repeats a handful of tracks a lot, but when those tracks are as awesome as they are, I think I'll let it slide. The opening is a perfect fit, and those trumpets, oh my god, those trumpets, oh my god. They remove them at the halfway point as a signal to the show's shift towards a more dramatic tone, but the OP remains great. And then of course, there's the first ending. My oh my, the first ending. I'm not even gonna try to explain it, just take a listen. Shit, I played the wrong song. Oh, not this. I just got this out of my head. Stop it. Cue the transition! Cue the transition! Welcome to the NHK is a terrific series about the seriousness of a whole load of debilitating social conditions. In the end, it seems to highlight that the most important thing is to never feel guilty for who you are, to not wallow in your own misery. Externalize that blame if you must, and prove that doubt wrong. Of course, this was all just my interpretation of Welcome to the NHK's message, as I'm sure there's a whole load of other ideas you may have. Really, that's part of what makes it so great. It's one of those shows actually capable of changing you as a person. Seeing as how a good portion of its target audience makes up the very conditions it covers, that seems pretty logical. But regardless of whether you consider yourself a hikikomori or even an otaku, it's incredibly relatable, as I doubt there's a person watching this who hasn't thought they could be doing better or working harder at any time. It's a show for everyone about always moving forward, serving as a profound reminder to accept yourself as you walk the path before you, not because it's the path you've been given, but because it's the path before you. So, on that metaphorical note, I award Welcome to the NHK an approval rating of Best of the Best, a distinction reserved for shows I find to be an absolute masterpiece and a definite must-watch, as well as an overall score of 4.6 out of 5. The fantastic execution of its themes and seamless transition between comedy and heavy psychological drama sets this show apart. The animation issues only serve to lower the score a bit, but they don't take away from the fact that this is one of the best, most impactful character stories in anime. Don't make the same mistake I did in putting this one off any longer. Whether you're a seasoned vet or a total newbie, Welcome to the NHK is a readily accessible show that's sure to leave a mark. If you're looking for something similar to Welcome to the NHK, I point you towards Genshiken for another show about NEETs and otakus struggling in the normal world, only this one's a bit more lighthearted. Also check out Watamote for another story about a reclusive protagonist struggling to branch out and restart her social life. Just don't expect the same level of progress and depth as NHK. And that's all for me. The more astute of you might notice I added this little score breakdown thingy here where my logo used to be. Let me know if you love it or hate it down below. Please subscribe if you enjoyed the video and feel free to follow me on Twitter at UTS Reviews. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.